argument against the Voting Rights Act, that the court was right to strike it down because it's outdated. We simply don't need to worry about the Voting Rights Act, black minorities and so on. Is that something you agree with?
No, absolutely not. We have plenty of racism left, and we can just look at the election laws across the country show us that. The fact that in over 30 states, there's over 80 bills introduced right now to somehow impede someone's ability to vote, to me shows we still have racism alive and well.
So you have a proposal that would replace the section that was voted down in the recent Supreme Court announcement. What is your proposal in detail?
Representative Keith Ellison and myself have a proposal that specifically be a constitutional amendment to make sure that we have a right to vote. I think people expect that you have that already in the Constitution, but there is no explicit right to vote in the Constitution. If we had an explicit right to vote, any state that passes a law that makes it harder to vote would have to prove that they're not harming someone's ability to vote, rather than the opposite. Right now, a person has to prove that they've been harmed by a state law, and it really changes the burden of proof onto those states that pass these laws that really make it harder for people to vote.
So, Mr. Pocan, you're suggesting not that this should be restricted in terms of protections over certain southern states and states where there was a history of voter discrimination. You're saying it should be spread right across the 50 states.
In every single state, no matter where you live, you should have a right to vote. You should be able to have the same right in Wisconsin that you do in Maryland, that you do in California.
Good luck with that, sir. I'm desperately trying to imagine how you're going to get that through the House and the Senate.
Well, I tell you, if we have the conversation, I think the public's going to agree. Every single person has that inherent right to vote. That's what is the fundamental part of our democracy. And if we had a constitutional amendment that said that, all these other fights would be for naught.
Let me read to you what Jennifer Rubin has written in the Washington Post today. She says, the racial grievance mongers could not accept the proposition that the states previously under the watchful eye of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act have changed in 50 years. They are convinced that the stain of racism never fades. But did we not just have a presidential election with very clear examples of attempts to suppress the vote?
And there are also clear examples across the country of attempts to suppress the vote, whether it be in my state, Wisconsin, photo ID laws, bills that restrict your amount of time you can vote, how you register to vote. These are the types of laws that we see across the country making it harder to vote. What happens essentially is elected officials want to pick their voters rather than the voters picking their elected officials. So that's why we really need to make sure that we all have that same fundamental right to vote, no matter where you live, no matter who you are.
Congressman Mark Pocan, thank you so much for joining us.